as you have said a couple of times, when the time's right, we're going to do a long form on my father and do an entire episode on him. I think I'm not up to it. And I'm not sure that, well, you're always up to things, but I don't think the time's right. But man, Conrad, to say that I have been overwhelmed in a very, very positive way. I think I used to look at the phrase celebration of life. Um, I did. I looked at it completely different, but I can say once the initial shock of the circumstances, I kind of got through that and went out to El Paso and I mean Laredo. No, what was that? Laredo. Laredo. Went out there and that sort of 24, 48 hours was I don't want to say a blur, but it was all happening so fast, and I knew I needed to get on the plane and go out there, and so did my family members. But flying back home and kind of getting my head straight and really having a little quiet time on the plane, and what has transpired, and I know Conrad, as it relates to so many things. I thank you privately, but I'm going to thank you publicly. And if you're listening to this, whether it's the 28th of February, or if you listen to it in March or April or May, I can assure you, Conrad Thompson rolled up his sleeves. That was not an easy task, from Michael Hayes to, oh my gosh, Conrad, the last week's episode of the tributes and everything that you did through the entire process. I can't thank you enough. I can't thank so many people, but the term celebration of life took on a new meaning for me. And, the outpouring, and I mean, the Rock's Instagram post, Stone Cold sent, and I know some of this is private. I don't think Steve would mind me, but just the texts and the messages and the voicemails from, man, I mean, so many people, Conrad. I'll get emotional really diving into that. And that's not going to happen today. But it just, and Conrad, you know this. I just wish my dad could have heard.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that does give me emotional. I wish he could have heard all those kind words that were said, and
high regard everyone held him in.
It's still amazing to me, and the last words my sister spoke, that paragraph that my dad wrote in a letter 8 or 10 years ago, but she got the opportunity and she never opened that envelope. But he walked it up to her house 8 or 10 years ago and said, "Hey, this is for my funeral." And she never opened it until the day after his passing. But the words that she said that he wrote about what it's basically, he did a lot of good and he did a lot of bad. He knew that he was a flawed human being, and man, that was really special, therapeutic, heartwarming. It just, man, look, and I'm just talking about the past. Just so many things have happened, Conrad, over the last 2 weeks. But I'm rambling here a little bit. But thank you, Conrad, for everything you did, all the tributes, the outpouring of love and emotion, and everything that went into. Oh man, just so much. I'll stop there.
Well, Jeff, we all appreciate your candor, and everybody listening to this feels like they're your friend now. I mean, I know that sometimes we say in wrestling, "Oh, this is like a big fraternity or a big sorority or a big family," or all those cliches. But the reality is, people who listen to this show, myself included, feel like we know you. And I'm fortunate enough to know you when the microphones aren't on. And it was our pleasure to do a great man service last week. We actually recorded, you and I haven't talked about this on the show, but we talked about your rookie year as the last time you and I sat down and recorded an episode. And in that, we played the first promo you ever did on TV, which was your dad's now famous "I Quit" poem. He didn't write it, but he made it a big part of your life, and it became a part of your wrestling life that day. And there was a part in there that you said in your promo about what he wrote to your brother Jason, where he talked about legacy that your dad wanted to leave behind. And just hearing that got you emotional because you and I knew at the time he was battling esophagus cancer. And you referenced the battle that your dad's in right now, but we didn't really say anything. And I stepped out on a limb and said, we should just get those prayer warriors behind him and just reveal it. And unbelievably, Mr. Jarrett was gone the very next day. So as the world is learning on a Tuesday that he's gone, you and I had just the day before recorded this episode. And that was a pretty amazing timing for that episode to be recorded and air. And I'm wondering, now with the benefit of hindsight, you've had a chance to sort of sit and think and reflect on all of that. Man, is it just wild, or do things happen the way they're supposed to? This feels like it convinced me more of that more than ever.
Conrad, where I got an idea. While I'm going to say these few words, Google the parable of the Chinese farmer.
Okay.
Parable of the Chinese farmer. But when you ask for those prayers, and a lot of people might be thinking, oh, wow, those prayers weren't answered. I'm going to kind of flip on the other side and go, now, wait a minute. A man with esophagus cancer, my dad was having a rough time. Chemo.
At 80 years old, by the way.
Just kicking his butt. And the radiation had, it was doing what it was supposed to do and making him it was very, very difficult to eat. And so he had to, he got a feeding tube put in on a Thursday, and his situation, which nobody wants to do that. He opted out, didn't want to take the original surgery, just going to be too much. But, as I sit here today, almost 2 weeks later, what a life my dad led and had. And for a massive heart attack to hit before he got up and headed off to his next chemo treatment, no pain. No, I mean, he got a good night's rest, was getting up in discomfort because of the chemo and radiation, but essentially had a heart attack and passed away. I view that, as I said here today, as an incredible blessing, like an incredible blessing. And what you just stated, go to the day before, me and you are talking about it, and you kind of let the cat out of the bag, and that's cool. And but just how everything happened. And look, here's another little, all things are, it's not my world, it's God's world, without question, because about 7 weeks ago, my church asked me to speak at a men's breakfast. I said, yes, happy to kind of tell my story. Who would have known or even thought in their wildest dreams that Tuesday, the 21st at 6:00, I'd be speaking at a men's breakfast, and 4 hours later at my same church, we'd be having my dad's service, all at the same day, all at the same place. And the people that came in, and I mean, Tony and all the AEW folks, a big group from Memphis, people came from all over, Jerry Lawler writing those words. And look, it goes without saying, he's got a lot of talent. It's a great artist, but he's a great talker. But for Dave Brown to be a part of delivering that, you just never know how things are going to turn out. But they all, if I don't screw things up and get in God's way, things happen exactly the way they're supposed to happen, which I just think it's a real blessing. I mean, a real blessing. And so we started that by you saying, Conrad, I'm glad we're back grooving, and I am very grateful for the last 2 weeks. I'll just say that.
You asked for it. Here's that reading you wanted. Once upon a time, there was a Chinese farmer whose horse ran away. That evening, all of his neighbors came around to commiserate. They said, "We're so sorry to hear your horse has run away. This is most unfortunate." The farmer said, "Maybe." The next day, the horse came back, bringing 7 wild horses with it. And in the evening, everyone came back and said, "Oh, isn't it lucky? What a great turn of events. You now have 8 horses." The farmer again said, "Maybe." The following day, his son tried to break one of the horses, and while riding it, he was thrown and broke his leg. The neighbors then said, "Oh dear, that's too bad." The farmer responded, "Maybe." The next day, the conscription officers came around to conscript people into the army, and they rejected his son because he had a broken leg. And again, all the neighbors came around and said, "Isn't that great?" And again, he said, "Maybe." The whole process of nature is an integrated process of immense complexity, and it's really impossible to tell whether anything that happens in it is good or bad because you never know what will be the consequences or of the misfortune, or you never know what will be the consequences of the good fortune.